I hope that's the first thing everybody live gets to hear.
Yeah, that's important. That's an important part of
People are gonna
the
watch
whole thing.
this like archived YouTube video in like 10 years. Popcorn Perspectives is gonna be like a televised syndicated program by then. And they're just gonna be like, ha, remember the first line of the first episode?
Televised.
Scattaboosh.
Scattaboosh.
You never know, man.
Yeah, I guess.
It could be TV.
Television.
I mean, this, like what we're doing right now, basically was TV all of 2020. I mean, every talk show was just like a glorified Zoom call.
True.
And to be quite honest, I probably have a better camera system than like some of them. Right. I mean, some of those early talk shows were rough. Well, I mean, I was gonna say, I mean, it is 9:40 in the morning, so I doubt too many people will come in for the live show.
It's getting late.
Yeah, I know.
Like
I know you gotta
half over.
You gotta get your sleep in before your thing tonight.
I know.
You had to get a full night's rest before that.
I do.
Dude, I can't even begin to explain to you how poorly I slept. It was wild.
Really?
Yeah, well, Sydney's out of town.
I was gonna say, could have been worse. We could have had to be.
That might have been maybe tired though.
True, but that also probably sick.
Oh yeah, that's true because it's an hour away.
Yeah,
that would have been pretty crappy. But yeah, I fell asleep at like 1, and all things combined, probably slept for, I mean, less than 4 hours for sure. Less than 4 for sure. I probably more than 3. If I'm gonna say more than 3, but less than 4. But it was just, it was rough. But it's all right. It's all good. All right, man. Well, I guess let's now, just for the sake of the recording, and this is going to be on YouTube and stuff. If anybody is seeing this part, welcome in. But let's give a little bit about what this is. So this is...
Do you want me to hit record on my end?
Oh, yeah, you can hit record on your end at any point.
All right.
Whenever you feel like contributing to the conversation.
3, 2, 1.
So yeah, let's give a little bit about what this is about now. So this is Popcorn Perspectives, a brand new podcast from your boys at the Totem Podcast Network.
Which everybody knew was a thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you never know. You gotta talk the game, you know?
Sure.
So, a brand new podcast. If you are unfamiliar with what we've done before, we do a podcast called Totem Talks, where we discuss music and artists and compare and contrast and all those things. We've been doing that for a couple of years at this point. And we had been kind of like half jokingly discussing a film review podcast for much longer than I think we realized.
Sure.
Because we'd mentioned it for like over a year.
Really?
Oh yeah. Well, just like jokingly, like, we could do that. And then we would move on with our lives. And then I want to say like maybe a few months ago, we were just like, why don't we do that?
Yeah, let's just do it.
Let's just do it. So we worked it out. We did it and we're doing it. And this is our first official episode. And by first official, I mean, we also didn't do any like practice pre-record episodes.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So this is our first ever episode.
See how it goes.
We kind of like that with Totem Talks too. We did one.
Right.
We did. Oh, I'm sorry. We technically did 2, because we did one where we tested the technology to make sure it would work.
Yeah, we just kept getting screwed up with those first couple.
Right. We did. So we did with like the fake one, and then we did like the real one all the way through, and it was so poorly quality wise. I was like, I'm not releasing this. We need to redo it, and we did it a second time, and that was the first official episode.
I'm not doing that again now. I'm too old for that now.
I've been through it now, man. Yeah, but anyway, Nick, who are you?
I think you've nailed it. Really, I'm Nick.
Well, tell people who maybe don't know us at all.
Sure.
Why should they ever trust you to talk about anything?
Oh my goodness. Well, they absolutely should not. I have no idea what I'm talking about. In fact, it will be incredibly strange because we are recording this before 10 a.m. There will at no point become a time when I am interesting because I am not indulging in any sorts of substances. So I might be a little bit more coherent than I am on Totem Talks, but I will be far less interesting.
You know
So
what?
please ignore me at all. Really, just pretend when I'm talking, nothing's happening.
I'm going to tell you right now, don't sell yourself short. You are
Thank you.
just as boring even when you're indulging.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Probably more long-winded without
Well,
any
whatever.
idea where I'm going.
First off, you're absolutely not more long-winded when you've not been indulging.
Okay.
Is that what you're implying?
No. Once I've indulged, I could just go on. As
Oh,
can
yeah,
you.
okay, good. So we are saying the same thing.
Uh-huh.
Yes, your wind does get longer the more you've indulged yourself.
Correct.
But anyway, that's Nick. I'm Pat, and why you should listen to me? I'm in a similar boat. I mean, I've watched a lot of movies.
Yeah.
I've
I
watched a lot of movies in my
like
life,
movies.
and I'm a very critical person in general. As in, like, I really enjoy.
It's almost abusive for me, honestly.
Yeah, I I really enjoy talking about things. I really enjoy like debates and discussions, and so I will have these with people about any topic I know about that they also know about. Like, I'm not one of those people who like will debate you on something you don't know, or like even like debate is a strong word. But I mean, and this is one of the reasons we're such good friends because you're the
Mhm.
same way.
Yeah.
We love those like critical discussions about
Sure.
things,
Of course.
whether they're legitimately serious or not. I mean, the amount of times we have had real, like, in-depth discussions about, like, what would you do if one of your bones was Jello?
Yeah, I
Like,
know.
legitimately, like, it's a
That's
lot.
more fun that way.
That's true. So that's us, and we're starting here with an interesting film. Before we get too far into everything, I'm gonna play our brand
Yeah.
new popcorn perspectives intro. So hopefully you enjoy it, and we'll go from there. Well, there you go.
I love that. Really enjoyed it.
there's our brand new intro for our brand new podcast. And if you are watching the video of this, you will see that our first film that we decided to talk about was Clueless.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we got it in our heads to start with something we could go about for a while, which I think we decided the Paul Ruddiverse, the Paul Rudd cinematic universe.
Yeah. Throw in a couple of his films to warm us up.
Yeah, because who doesn't love Paul Rudd?
You got to. And he has
And
been the same age for all of the films that we're going to, no matter when they were released.
very true. I think he was born the exact age he was in this film,
Yeah.
and has just not aged
That's it.
since then.
Yeah.
Like Aphrodite, he came fully formed from the foams
Mhm.
of the ocean,
He was always 26 and he will always be 26.
which is something we will have to talk about in this film.
Sure.
So yeah, Clueless. 1995 it came out. It was like a cult hit, a big hit when it came out.
Sure.
And
Written and directed by Amy Heckerling.
yes, that is true.
Mhm.
And one thing that I had never pieced together is it's which they did this a lot in the 90s and early 2000s. It's a retelling of a classic novel, which is
Right.
Emma by Jane Austen.
Right.
and it makes perfect sense. I mean, I had to do a book report on Emma my freshman year of high
Okay.
school, so like having that layered context of it, I was like, oh, absolutely, it is.
Hmm.
Like, take out the
Interesting.
carriage, put in a Jeep, and you pretty much have the same thing.
Right.
And all of that aside, we'll get to discussing. Our plan here is we're going to talk about the plot of the film,
Of course.
and then move on to our grades of individual areas of the
Yeah.
film, and kind of just muck about, as it were. Talk
Yes.
about what we
I
like, talk
love
about
to
what we
muck.
didn't like, and this is going to be a rather relaxed situation. We're
I
not,
agree.
I feel like when we're on, other things we do together, like Totem Talks, we get very in depth about the reason we're scoring, the critical issues of like the decimal scoring. We're doing
Eh,
much different here. We're doing letter grades.
yeah.
We just want to talk about and celebrate film.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're going to do. So I'll start here. So
Yeah, please.
I'm going to give you a little bit of the plot of Clueless. So we open with Cher Horowitz, who is a popular teenager living in Beverly Hills, with her father, Mel, who's a lawyer.
Oh, he's just the best.
Of course. And then we find out that her mother died during a liposuction procedure when Cher was a child,
Really sets the tone
was a
for the
baby.
film, honestly.
Yeah, and that really does kind of tell you everything you need to
Mhm.
know. Uh, so we we hear a little bit about Cher as she's preparing for her day, using something that I'm glad never caught on, which is a computer telling her what does or doesn't match.
Oh, but
And
here's the thing, like, honestly, it's one of my favorite moments right away in the film
sure.
because, like, it is so nostalgic for anyone who operated a computer in the
Oh,
1990s, and just
absolutely.
the
It
way that the
it is.
program worked and the graphics on it, I was like, "Oh my god," this instantly, it became one of my favorite parts of the setting that they created in her house, like, brilliant, and then the yellow plaid that it chooses for her is the outfits are a little over the
Yeah.
top in this film,
Well,
in a
of
good
course
way.
they are, but they're supposed to be.
In
I
a good
mean,
way,
my
yes.
we'll talk about my one gripe real quick then with this. Is I fully get where you're coming from with the nostalgia of the computer program
Mhm.
and everything. Cher is clearly a fashion icon and is
Of
very
course.
interested in fashion and clothing. I know people like that. They have every piece of outfit memorized. And I doubt she'd be trusting a computer program because there's no way she wrote the program, right?
No.
I mean, just based on Cher's not stupid,
No.
like far from it. And in fact, a lot of the things in this film are that Cher is much smarter than you think, but in an unconventional way with the way
A
she
lot of the
speaks.
characters are.
Yeah, that's very true. But she's not a computer programmer.
No.
And so she didn't write the program. And so I doubt somebody who's that focused on fashion, like realistically, would be like, I'm trusting this program
Mhm.
to tell me what to wear.
Okay.
You know, so
Sure.
basically the whole film falls apart in the first 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's over.
Uh,
Yes.
so after a little bit, I mean, I'm gonna skip over some stuff. We meet Josh, Cher's like
Not
brother,
brother.
like son of Mel's ex-wife.
Yeah, they're like they were, I guess, step siblings for like a few weeks, and then
Yeah,
not anymore.
very clear to mention that.
Yeah.
But however, the whole time it is like he treats her like his sister.
Yeah.
And he is on break from college. He is a freshman at college. That will become important. So basically, the film goes, Cher goes to school, drives to school, which
Yeah, a little
will,
questionable.
yeah, very questionable considering the lack of a
Mhm.
license. Um, which we'll get to some.
Yeah, of
Actually, no,
course.
we'll get to it now because it's not going to be in my plot here.
Sure.
There comes a point later in the film where her father scolds her for driving to school, and like she mentions that she's done it before, and he like gets upset with her. And it's like, Mel, how did you think she was getting to school? You're
Yeah,
not driving
I
her.
know, I know. He's not driving her. The car is clearly not at home that she's
Right.
taking when she goes. I don't know what he's thinking is going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's my one week like the film is rather consistent with its characters,
Mhm.
which is a good thing. But Mel is a chief litigator who can afford a Beverly Hills
I know.
mansion. And you're telling me this dude is not noticing that
Yeah,
his
he
daughter is
pays so
driving?
little attention to the other things.
Right? Like, come on, man.
Yeah. He's always absorbed in his work.
Right. So we meet the fellow classmates. We go to Mr. Hall's class
Yes.
where Cher has to give a lecture. And she's a little ill prepared, but gets up and like really relates the topic to her own life. And this is where you first get a glimpse of Cher speaking in her own way and using her own words, but with intelligence.
Sure.
I mean, it's very off the cuff and very more motivational speaker than like
It's
informative
it's
speech.
it's super disconnected from reality. Like,
Correct.
I think in terms of, like, actually evaluating a problem critically, her score is an F. In terms of her ability to be, like, charismatic and publicly speaking completely, like, extemporaneously, she shows her intelligence in that way, but clearly has no idea what she's actually talking about,
Yeah,
including mispronouncing Haitians as Haitians, which I
that's
read
true.
is actually, like, Alicia Silverstone had no idea how to pronounce the word Haitians and mispronounced it during
Oh,
the,
that's perfect.
filming, and they were like, "No, no, no. You need to keep it that way. Like, it's Haitians, but also we're leaving it that way where you say Haitians," because it really
Yeah.
shows, like, the
We'll
disconnect
tell
that
you,
this
Alicia, but
like
we did not tell Cher what the
right.
real
Like, we
pronunciation
don't
is.
dislike Cher, but we need to understand how completely disconnected from, like, actual reality that she is. Like, she
Sure.
lives in her little Beverly Hills bubble.
Cher is a really good example of a flawed main character who has enough endearing traits that you still root for her.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is, I mean, you can toe the line because you could easily write a character like Cher Horowitz, and if you write it incorrectly, nobody's gonna like her.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, look no further than like her frenemies, who
Mhm.
don't have the same like glimpse into their life and see the positives. Uh, Moving on a little bit here, we will discuss. She obviously gets an F. She fails
Mhm.
in the class because Mr. Hall sees through the motivational speech.
Mhm.
And then Cher decides to somehow raise her grade by setting up Mr. Hall with his teacher crush, Miss Geist,
Yeah.
which, okay.
And for you mentioned Mr. Hall. You didn't mention that it's Wallace Shawn, which is one
Yeah.
always a delight to hear his voice on screen, and to see him. But I'm gonna be honest, like, the way he approaches some of the things that he says, I felt like were really spot on. Like, one thing in particular, one of the students tries to jump out a window, and he's like, "Could we save the
Yeah.
suicide attempts for next period?" And a little too touchy to say now, but if I was a teacher in the '90s, I absolutely would have said those exact same words. I say things
Sure.
similar to that on, like, less touchy subjects all the time. So I really liked and, Wallace Shawn was a teacher, for a time, so
I
he
That
kinda
makes a
grew from
lot
that
of sense
experience.
to me.
Mhm.
Yeah, Wallace Shawn is my haven't done any research, but wanted to talk about like an actor in other things
Oh,
who
sure.
maybe you wouldn't recognize the name of.
Mhm.
Because I feel like a lot of people have seen or heard Wallace Shawn.
Oh, they've
Specifically,
definitely at
our
least
age,
heard of him.
everybody's heard Wallace
Yeah,
Shawn because he's T Rex in Toy Story.
yeah. And
So,
you've probably seen The Princess Bride. I
and you've
assume you
probably
know
seen
he's
The
the
Princess Bride.
Sicilian.
Yeah, so he's been in a lot of things. He's a very well-renowned character actor,
Mhm.
and yeah, so he was going to be my IMDb deep dive, which we're going to talk about later. Because like I told you, I was like, I don't have any. I
Yeah.
didn't get to that part, but I had a couple. So we move on from that. So A transfer student, Ty Frazier, arrives at the school, and Cher decides that Ty's going to be her next project. And it's the prototypical makeover film at this
Mhm.
point. We're getting into, a little Eliza Doolittle going on here with Ty. They're trying to set her up with Elton,
Right.
who is just the best. So charming and so, handsome and all of those
Yeah.
really great traits that I'm sure will not come back to bite him at all.
Right. And also, I mean, like, let's be this is another instance of, like, Cher's concept of what a good deed is. It's like, well, how can I get my grades up? Let me see. Let me try to hook these two teachers up together. Oh, okay. Well, let me take this pathetic new girl and turn her into someone who can be popular. Well, I feel like everything that she thinks of as a good deed is at the very least a little bit backhanded, if not like,
Yeah,
she
that's
is a very question. Like her heart, I think, is genuinely in the right place again, but it just further shows like her whole disconnect from reality because of what she thinks of as being good, and like being charitable.
she's just a little selfish.
Uh-huh.
Selfish selfish with the best of intentions.
Sure.
It's like one of those things where it's like if I give you a business deal where you make 1 million and I make 10 million, you still made 1 million.
Sure. Sure.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's 1 million you didn't have before.
True.
Uh, all right. So moving on, the first thing Cher tries to do to kind of mold Ty is kind of, snuff out the budding attraction between Ty and Travis Birkenstock.
What a name.
Yeah, well, who's played by Brecken Meyer, also a good name.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
And it took me a while. I recognized Brecken Meyer in the film,
Mhm.
and I was like, do I just know him from this? His face is so familiar to me. I realized he's like the lead in a film called Road Trip,
Okay.
which I had, it's a 2000s comedy, like a raunchier comedy
Yeah.
than this. And he also plays, I think more famously, probably not, John Arbuckle in the like live action Garfield film.
Oh my God.
Yep, you're
Really?
welcome for that.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome for knowing that.
I Yeah. Okay. I mean, I was just thinking about how good his name is because, like,
Oh yeah,
they
Brecken
cl
Meyer is a good name. So
well,
is
I
Travis
just
Birkenstock.
Travis Birkenstock because he's a stoner and he's being made
Mhm.
fun of for, being a hippie who wears, what do you call 'em? Ponchos and
Yeah,
Birkenstocks and that kinda like, the way he dresses. It's very
it's a
much
little on the
making fun
nose,
of yeah, it's a little on the
but we'll
nose.
take it.
Yeah, I agree.
So, okay, the whole thing with Travis Birkenstock happens. He's a little, like you mentioned, a clumsy slacker, like skater pothead kind of guy. And they decide, no, you're going to go for Elton.
Yeah.
He's handsome, he's popular. But
Do you know
Elton,
who his father is?
Elton, of course, is not at all interested in Ty and is instead interested in Cher, which becomes evident when they go to a party and they play a game which is called, it's really called this, Suck and Blow.
Yeah, it's not that uncommon of a game.
Right. It's not
Yeah.
that uncommon of a game for people in this era.
Yeah,
Anybody, I don't think people are still playing Suck and Blow.
it's certainly possible.
Maybe, but it's
You
probably called
know
something
yeah,
else.
they couldn't actually they, like, failed so many times during the filming of this. They originally replaced the credit card with, like, a paper card, like, a cardboard, and then they cut holes in it, and then when that didn't work, they just, like, lathered up all the actors, with, like, chapstick and Vaseline to make it stickier because
Oh,
they just could not film
good. I'm sure that was a lovely
it.
game of Suck and Blow.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Just everybody's lips just greasy. Just all right, good
Okay.
stuff. So they play Suck and Blow. Elton goes to pass the card to Cher, drops the card, starts making out with Cher. Oof, that's a problem. Uh, Whatever. After the party, for some reason, Elton and Cher are in the car together because she thinks that's a good idea.
Well, she was, like, insistent that he takes
Right.
Ty home, but he was very insistent that he shouldn't and that it would be out of the way and he should take her home instead.
Yeah, all of that is correct. I'm just saying, like, Cher, come on.
Yeah.
The dude clearly just lost the game of second blow to make out with you. Like, he did a full thing, a full
Mhm.
kiss.
Yeah.
Like, listen, if we're playing suck and blow together, you and
Which
I,
we should try
which
it just
we should
for,
just,
you know,
I'm surprised we didn't
understand
before
the
the
film.
filming.
Yeah.
Yeah. Uh and if I like if I drop the credit card and like, we like peck and we because we lose, I'm like, oh
Mhm.
haha. But if we go and it's your turn and I drop the card and pull you into me, there's intent there.
Yeah.
How do you not pick up on that, Cher? Like, of course, like he's at fault here, but like you have to pick up on it.
Mhm.
So of course Elton tries to make out with her in the car and she rebuffs him. She's like,
Right.
not a chance, not happening. And then Elton, being the really, really classy gentleman that he has always seemed to be in the film, kicks her out and just leaves
Mhm.
her in a parking lot somewhere. A 15-year-old girl
Yeah.
alone in a parking lot somewhere in Hollywood.
Now, can I say something that was going on in the scene before he kicks her out?
Of course.
So, in the opening, well, not the set, like the second scene that we already mentioned, in Mr. Hall's class, Elton actually has one line of dialogue from the front of the room that you don't notice, where he asks if he can go to his locker because he lost his Cranberry CD. And then in the car ride after this party, the Cranberry CD is playing. So I guess he found it later on. That's good continuity.
That is very good continuity,
I dig it.
actually. Okay. So Cher's having a rough night. She takes out her cell phone, her 90s cell phone, clunk, boom, and calls her not brother Josh, who can come pick her up. And in the process of being on the phone with Josh to come pick her up, or no, I'm sorry, I'm backwards. I'm backwards. She calls a taxi first.
Sure.
With the cell phone, she tries to call a taxi
And then,
and gets mugged.
yeah,
Gets mugged. The scene is hilarious because she starts describing why she can't
get
like
down on the
take her
ground.
jacket off and get
Yeah.
down on the ground because her dress is too expensive. And he's just like, "You're what?" Like he's
Yeah.
so perplexed by it. However, she does get mugged at gunpoint.
Yeah,
So Cher's having a rough night.
it is.
Gets to a payphone. So for anybody born after 1998, a payphone was like a landline phone that they just had places that you could just call people with.
Right.
Because not everybody had cell phones.
You
In
know?
fact, Cher was the rare one for having a cell phone here in this
Yeah.
time.
You know what we should do? That reminds me. Our next episode will have to be the movie The Phone Booth with Kiefer
Oh.
Sutherland.
Oh gosh, what a film!
Right? Haven't
We
seen
can,
that in, like,
yeah, we could,
almost 20 years.
Wow, has it really been that
It's
long?
probably been at least 15.
Okay. Oh, you
But
want to
anyway.
you want to feel crazy old, dude?
No, but I'm going to, so go ahead.
Somebody mentioned like offhand in like a 15 years post.
Hmm.
Like it was like 15-year anniversary of like something happening. 2008
Yeah.
was 15 years ago.
Yep.
And I'm like, wait a minute, that's impossible because 10 years ago was the 90s.
Right. I know.
And
I know.
I keep trying to tell people that. And
It's
they're
not
like,
going to
no,
get any
that's
better.
not.
That's only going to get worse.
Oh, of course it is, dude. It's only gonna get way worse.
Yeah.
So after the mugging,
Yes.
payphone calls Josh to come pick her up, and he does. And this is the first point in the movie where it's blatantly obvious that there's a connection between the two of them.
Okay. But can I tell you what my issue with this part of it was, though?
Go ahead, of course.
Because he's on the phone and he's like, all right, I'm going to come for you, but you like owe me. She just called and said that she was like robbed at gunpoint of everything that she had. And he's like, oh man, this is a real problem for me now, isn't it? It's like, is that how you react to someone that you care about being robbed at gunpoint? That's crazy that you weren't like in any way upset by it.
It's very obvious to me that two things were evident here. Because I completely agree with you. It was so
Yeah.
jarring.
Yeah.
Uh, thing number one, this movie was like, we're gonna touch on some things, but like not
Not getting too deep.
really. Yeah, not get too deep. I mean, yeah, she's gonna get mugged at gunpoint at night in Hollywood.
Sure. Right
And we
after
could
being,
right
like,
after,
assaulted.
yeah, right after, yeah, back to back, boom, boom.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna dwell on that, and really neither is Cher.
It's true.
Cher, I mean, just kind of like, well, oops,
Yeah.
that sucks. Move on. It's like I mean, if this is a film that came out maybe even 10 years later, I think either those scenes wouldn't have been included or would have been more included,
Impactful.
like they would have been more impactful to her character.
Yeah.
But that's not what they were going for. And then two, it's very clear to me that whoever wrote the majority of the emotional points of Josh and the dialogue for Josh
Mhm.
thought that being an I would say 18 or 19,
For
freshman
his
college,
character in the movie, yeah.
yeah, 18 or 19, like it was the epitome of it was the height of coolness
Yeah.
to just be aloof in the situation.
Right, right.
So I can't show her that like she means anything to me.
Mhm.
I like because I mean the whole movie, I mean even after this, but really throughout the whole film, Josh just kind of like stands there and insults her.
Sure.
That's like his whole character, and it's like a playful negging. It's not like
Yeah.
it's not like what Amber insults her,
Yeah.
who is her like main enemy, frenemy, enemy, whatever. And like with the Josh, it's very clear. Like he's just like, you're a dumb kid and I'm smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an earlier scene where the maid is there and she, which is again, sign of the times here, was speaking to her and she was like, I don't speak Mexican, or like something about Mexican, and the maid's like, I'm not Mexican, and like leaves. She's like,
Uh-huh.
I don't understand why she's upset, and he's like, that's because she's from El Salvador. And Cher's just like, what's the difference? And he's just like, I mean, Josh is an analog for the audience there because
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh,
Ugh.
there's a big difference. Come on.
Mhm.
Mexico and El Salvador are completely different places. Whatever. I'm not getting into that part.
I think,
But
there's probably a lot of people there who are more related to, Cher's feelings on the subject, unfortunately.
that is sad to hear. Moving on. So that's where they begin to form their bond.
Mhm.
However, the next day at school, who walks through the door? A member of the Rat Pack,
Yeah.
basically. We meet Christian, who's the new student, a new transfer student. A lot of transfer
Yeah.
students,
Happening all the
just like
time.
mid-year transfer. We get Ty and we
Yeah.
get Christian.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't remember that being that common.
Right.
But hey, whatever. So he is like a little mysterious, a little like, like a deeper, like cool cat.
Yeah, like, he dresses like he's from the 40s or 50s.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
he does.
Yeah, he seems out of step with everything else that's happening here.
Okay, I need you to know what just happened to me. So
Alright, go.
I'm reading my biography here,
Sure.
or my plot of the film, and I just accidentally clicked a link, and it was the actress who plays Miss Geist,
Oh, okay, yeah.
whose name is Twink Kaplan.
Yes.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, it's a name, alright.
It's certainly a name. Anyway, we're going back to
Sure.
Christian. So immediately shares into him. Just like the mystique, the new guy, like he's attractive. And her plan to win him over is to try to like send herself flowers, make herself seem desirable
Yeah.
by making it seem like other people are interested in her,
Mhm.
which is a little weird to me
It's
because
classic Cher, though.
it is so classic Cher. But I'm saying the reason it's weird to me is I really feel like Cher probably wouldn't have to pretend people were interested in her.
Right, right.
Forget Elton. I mean, he's a piece of shit, so we're not
Yeah.
going to talk about Elton. Like, she's attractive, she's popular, she's like fashion conscious, she's like a sweet girl. How are people not like throwing themselves at this girl other than
She just
Jackass.
I mean, it is made clear several times that she, like, has no interest in other high school boys and that she will not
Right.
be dating any of them at any point because they're just, too immature for her.
Sure, but when has that stopped high school boys?
Oh, I'm sure that it doesn't.
And that's what I was saying.
Yeah.
Like, like, did you need to send yourself flowers, or could you
Yeah.
just have like talked to two, like, just like winked at two boys
Mhm.
and had them like throw themselves at your feet, and like you were able to use them as like a flight of stairs to get to your next class?
Oof. Well, she's not maybe she is. I don't know if she would do that intentionally.
You're right. She probably wouldn't, and that's.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure it's probably overall a part of like us getting to like her a little bit of thing. Like she wouldn't use
Yeah.
other people.
Yeah, she's ignorant, not mean.
Right. And honestly, like the elephant in the room here is Cher Horowitz walked so Elle Woods could run 100%. I
Sure,
mean,
sure.
that's just what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like the similarities between these characters of like
Yeah.
fashion conscious, likable, a
Yes.
little smarter than you think, but like
Mhm.
also like kind of spacey. The difference is, of course, Elle Woods becomes a lawyer.
Yes.
Okay, so basically, they go to a party together, and now Josh, he's a little jealous of this. And you get to this is when you start to like you see their bond, you see
Mhm.
there's like some there's sparks there, but like Josh like goes to the party because he's like jealous,
Yeah.
and like that's okay, all right. So then she invites Christian back home, and you get a really good scene with Christian and the dad, where he's
Oh,
just
yeah.
like he literally looks at this dude's like, "What the fuck just walked through my
I
door?
know.
What is this?" I like starts just like insulting him. Great work from Mel here.
Yeah. Oh,
Great work
I'm
from
not
Mel.
100% sure how to pronounce his last name, but Dan Hedaya is the
Yeah.
actor. His performances are so spot on. Like, he
Mhm.
is hands down my favorite part of this film. Every
I
scene that he is in is
I
magic.
totally get that.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, he rebuffs the advances of Cher now because
Mhm.
Cher tries to like seduce him. And he's just like, no, we're friends. And I will say this for Christian.
Mhm.
He's mysterious, and he's like got this like air about him. I feel like anybody watching it in hindsight can kind of see what's about to happen here.
Sure.
But he has always, if you like, when you really listen to it, been like, as a friend, we're friends, we're friends. Oh, like very much setting the boundary for her
Yeah.
and setting her expectation, which is
Sure.
kudos to the writers and kudos to them. I mean, Christian is probably overall the most like righteous character,
Mm.
which we'll come to later on. But I give him props for that. So basically, afterwards, you get a good scene with Murray and then Cher's friend Die and him and Cher driving to school, where Murray uses a
Yeah.
very long-winded quote, which I will get to later.
Sure.
Very long-winded phrase to basically say, "Oh no, Christian's gay."
Yeah. Right, and talk about another character, like, Donald Faison as Murray is someone who is if you only listen to him for 3 seconds, you're like, "Oh, this guy is incredibly stupid. Like, what an idiot this character
Yeah,
is." But then if you let him talk for a little bit longer, you're like, "How much are you holding back what you know?" Like,
right.
he'll all of a sudden become very eloquent for a few sentences and then go back to,
Absolutely.
like it's a very interesting, like, caricature that he portrays himself as versus who he is at the same time. So I think there's a little bit of intrigue to those, like, very secondary characters, which is kinda interesting.
Yeah, and I think his relationship with D is great
Yeah.
because you get the two of them like bickering and fighting and arguing a lot. But like whenever like the quote unquote cameras is and like the eyes
Mhm,
aren't on them, you can see that they're actually very caring for each other.
mhm.
And like it's almost like a ruse where because it's high school. It's like we
Yeah.
don't want to seem too into each other, so like we fight a lot. But they're not. They're into each
Right.
other, and they like they're sweet. And yeah, as you mentioned, like he's very eloquent when given the chance. Although I will say the one argument that he gives D about like he calls her woman
Hmm. Yeah.
and she like snaps back at him like I've told you 100 times not to call me that, and he's like, he goes on this whole thing like it's a term of endearment, blah 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 blah,
Yeah.
like giving a whole bunch of like reasons, and it's like, yeah, man,
Yeah.
we
Still
don't
don't
think
agree with it.
yeah, like, we don't think you're being misogynistic, like, because that's his whole argument is, like,
Yeah.
it's not misogynistic, like, it's not I'm not being misogynist. It's like, no, that's not what it is. It's you've had a clear boundary set towards you, and you shouldn't
Yeah.
break that.
Right.
Like,
Hmm.
that's it. Like, for instance, early on in my relationship, with, with my fiance, her name is Sydney, and she was like, I had, like, called her Sid at one point, and
Hmm.
she was like, she doesn't like when her significant other calls her that. She's fine with, like, friends and other people calling her that, but like, in her mind, that's a friend term.
Hmm.
Like, that's just the way she's viewed it, and so, like, that's fine, I just don't call her Sid,
Interesting.
and it's not a huge deal for me. I have other
Hmm.
names to call her, like, "Hey, you." It's
Yeah.
great.
Woman.
Yeah, like, woman, I'm fine with that. No, but, like, it's just, like, it's not about misogyny or not misogyny. It's about respecting the boundaries set by your
Sure.
partner, which granted, he's 15 years old, 16 years old, whatever.
Yeah.
I understand he doesn't know that. But yeah, well, we'll move on from that. He does use some interesting language. The one I will say, which is not part of my quote, is he calls him a cake boy,
Yeah.
which is just very 90. I mean,
Sure.
the whole reaction to Christian is so very 90s.
Hmm.
Uh, but so, they remain friends, and Christian becomes like you know, her fashion BFF, her gay best friend.
Right.
And what happens after that is Ty gets very popular. And the reason this happens is also by far the worst moment in the film for Cher Horowitz. And they're at the mall, and you hear screaming and like
Hmm.
death curdling screams, and you're like, okay, what's happening? Well, what's happening is two douchebags are dangling Ty off the second floor balcony of this mall, and she's like screaming like she's gonna die
Yeah.
because they're dangling her upside down. I mean, she falls, she's dead.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
She's fallen 20, 25 feet
Head
directly
first,
on her head.
backwards. Yeah.
And Christian right away, smaller than both of these guys,
Hmm.
it needs goes right in, pulls her back, starts scolding the guys. Another like check mark for Christian, like good
Sure.
dude, a good dude. And that's what I said earlier. Like he's a righteous guy
Hmm.
who like is just like he's got all the qualities that you're looking for. Like he's chivalrous but he's not. He's a respectful chivalry
Hmm.
and very much like willing to jump in and help. Good for him. I'm Team Christian.
Yeah.
Um, so after that moment is the worst moment in the film for Cher, because Cher's first thing that she really says is, bit over dramatic, huh? I guess she's one for the dramatics. It's like, are you kidding me,
Yeah.
Cher? This whole film, you've been portraying yourself as this like sweet girl who's like a little spacey, a little, a little self-centered, but she's got the best of intentions.
Hmm.
Like that girl almost died,
Yeah.
and you're just like, wow, definitely drawing attention to herself. Like, come on. I was like angry at Cher. I
Yeah.
was like, that is a brutal take. That is a brutal take. So anyway, Ty gets popular,
Hmm.
and it really strains her relationship with Cher, and and Cher just gets really stressed out about the whole situation. Ends up failing her driving test.
Oh yeah.
spectacularly by smashing into other cars, and is just like, that'll buff out, right?
Yeah. And, like, her
No.
reaction to it being over and to failing is, like, complete disbelief, like, she doesn't
Yeah.
really understand why she can't bribe the driving instructor in some way to just give her a passing grade. Like, it just doesn't make sense to her that she can't just have things the way that she wants to because she wants them that way.
Yeah. So, uh, Cher goes home, distraught. Ty's there. They've already been a little strained. Ty is flirting with Josh,
Mhm.
who's like not unflirting back. I mean, he's being nice. He's not necessarily putting the moves, but he's they're chatting, and Cher's a little miffed about this. This doesn't really
Yeah.
say much. A little miffed. Then Ty starts like confessing to Cher that she has feelings for Josh, which I mean they've spoken all of 10 minutes, but
Right.
that's fine. She's in love with him. It's great. And Cher is very much to Ty, like, nah, though. Like, you guys aren't right for each other,
Yeah.
which leads to a horrendous falling out between the two, where I mean, things are said. Maybe the harshest sentence I've ever heard in film, which we'll discuss, because of course it's one of the quotes of this film.
Mhm.
Uh, and afterwards, there's this scene where Cher is just like walking the streets, and she does in fact say like, "I'm so totally clueless." Roll
Mhm.
credits. We're done. We did
Yeah.
it. And as she's walking around, she's like, "I don't even understand what she sees in Josh. Like, he's not even attractive in a conventional way." And it's
Right.
like, okay,
Alright.
all right, girl.
Mhm.
But finally, after like a walk, which is, I don't know how long the walk was, but I believe it went from day to night. Like, she's just walking for hours
Right.
around Hollywood,
Trying to figure out her life.
pondering. Yeah. And she finally realizes she is totally butt crazy in love with Josh. Don't know why you had to say butt crazy.
Yeah, I'm not sure what
That's a
that even
weird,
means.
it's a weird profession of love. However,
Yeah.
she realizes she's in love with Josh. And she responds to the thought of being in love with Josh in a very positive way. Of like, she realizes she wants to be a better person and live a more like purposeful life,
Mhm.
which I think is good. I mean, she
Yeah.
realizes like cares about that stuff, and I want Josh to care about me,
Mhm.
and so I want to care about this stuff, which is good. And she has a very sweet scene with her father at one point where
Yeah.
she really is just like, and this is where you get the vulnerability of Cher. She
Yeah.
thinks she's not good enough for Josh, and that she's just this like shallow, self-centered nobody, and that he wants a do-gooder.
Yeah.
And her father, Mel, as you just mentioned, Dan Hedaya, like, really sits her down and it's just like, you do so much good that you don't even realize. Like, you have taken care of me, and Josh, and making sure that we are like safe and well fed, and you're always like looking out for us, and like you're keeping up the house, which I mean there's a team
Mhm.
of
Yeah.
cleaning staff, but sure,
Right.
you're doing your part, Share.
Something.
And it was like a really sweet moment of like him actually showing that maybe he does see what's going on.
Yeah.
And also there is something earlier, now that we've fully established that they like each other.
Mhm.
There was a scene before where Josh like talks about Cher with the dad, and
Mhm.
then like walks out, and like the dad kind of smiles, and it's like, oh, so and you're okay with it.
Mm.
It's just, the whole thing's a little weird.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and this is why they had to very clearly talk about the fact that they were only married for like a few weeks and then blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But it's like, if you're only married for a few weeks, You got real close with the kid, like with the son.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. Whatever. So we move on, and she captains the school's disaster relief effort for Pismo Beach, and she accepts uh, a skating tournament invitation by Travis,
Right.
which of course is where she reconciles with Ty, and it's very sweet. And then of course you get like the scene, the climax, the culmination of the film, the scene on the stairs, where you get the line that made all the girls swoon in the
Mhm.
90s, from Paul Rudd here. You know you're beautiful. Boom, they kiss. It's love. It's wonderful. Then of course, they, all of her friendships are solidified. Ty and D are great. And then how does the film end? The very first thing that Cher does is get her teachers together, and the film ends with Ms. Geist and Mr. Hall getting married and inviting all of the students
Yeah.
to their wedding.
So unrealistic.
Yeah,
Let me
I was
tell
about to
you, that
say,
is
Nick,
the
as a high
exact
school teacher who
opposite of
just
what
got
you want.
married, as
And
a high school
they
teacher who
all
got married
knew,
less than a year
they
ago.
found out every piece of information about it, and I had to, like, actively threaten them with
Yeah,
reports to administration to make sure they didn't show up.
of course.
So,
So either way, we find out during the wedding that Ty and Travis have begun dating, which of course they had attraction in the beginning of the film. And then and then Cher catches the bouquet.
yeah, come on.
And Josh, they hug and kiss about it.
Come
Okay.
on.
Okay,
All
buddy.
right now.
And that is Clueless.
Yes, it is.
That's the film.
Mhm.
So let's talk about some stuff here.
Sure.
First thing to talk about, elephant in the room. Obviously, the whole weird step sibling relationship between them is a little awkward.
It is.
I, is it more awkward though than the fact that at best she's 15 and he's 18
Yeah, is that
and
the I
could
didn't
be
even know that that
15
was
to
the case.
19?
Yeah, I didn't realize that that was her age in the film.
Yeah, so she mentions
Okay.
being 15 at one point.
Okay. Yeah,
Which is, I
I
mean,
missed that, I guess, and I was just kind of under the assumption that she was, like, a senior, and,
no.
okay.
Yeah, it's a little awkward,
It is.
but
Yeah, I got nothing else for that.
I got nothing else to say. It's a little awkward. It's just going to be more awkward
Mhm.
the more time passes, I'm sure.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, it's very lighthearted. The film, it steers away from a lot
Mhm.
of negative things. So I guess we just gave the whole plot.
Sure.
So if you had to give the plot a letter grade, what do you got for me?
So, I mean, here's the thing. For me with the plot in this film, like, I don't think it's a bad plot or anything at all
Sure.
like that. But I feel like this film, like, the plot is almost incidental. To me, it's, like, much more about the characters and their development and whatever happens to happen to them to, like, develop and change them. Like,
Sure.
it could have been anything as long as we saw the growth and change in the characters. So, like, the specific plot points are, like, just less important, less forward than I think the characters are here. So, like, for me, the plot is kind of an average-ish plot. Like,
Mhm.
I'm giving this, like, maybe a CC plus.
Okay.
And not because I didn't like it, but just because I think it's
Right.
the least important
It's
part of what's
yeah,
going on here.
I fully get that. And I am similar. I'm a little higher than you, so I gave it a B minus.
Okay.
And for me it was a lot of what you said. It's also a lot of it's a pretty faithful adaptation of Emma
Mhm.
and modernized, which I really like. You can pinpoint certain things between the two that are very interesting, and I think the plot of Emma is very interesting, and the fact that it's like a romance novel and it's a romance film, but the film does a really good job of having important plot points,
Mhm.
but also kind of a poor job of emphasizing them. Like, you have the
Yeah,
mugging scene,
right,
you
and it
have the
means
scene with
nothing.
Elton, right?
It's like,
You
come
have
on.
all of these, like, iconic
And that's what
scenes,
makes it feel just
or we didn't
so
even discuss the
backgroundish
scene
for me.
of Dee, like, almost causing a multi-car pileup on the highway
Oh, sure,
during
yeah, yeah.
the
Mhm.
Cake Boy scene,
Yeah.
which I will say, having I had to watch it twice, not the whole film, but that scene.
Mhm.
That truck is driving in the dividing lane of an entrance,
Sure.
as like that she's not even at fault there.
Right.
I want to be very clear. Like, Dee did nothing wrong in that car
Yeah.
other than get scared. I mean, get
Yeah.
scared and freeze up. That's what she did
That's a problem.
wrong. As a driver, you have to always be ready to
Yeah.
react.
Of course.
But granted, she's like 16, so
Yeah.
I can't be too harsh on her for it.
No.
Okay, so we'll go down to acting.
Sure.
Individual performances here. What do we got?
Oh, I mean, the one individual performance for me that gets an A is Dan Hedaya.
Okay.
Like, I loved every one of his scenes. I loved the character that he was, and he stayed true to it all the way through. The rest, I mean, like, here's the thing. All of these actors are essentially asked to be less individuals and to be more caricatures. And I think that they execute that well. I think that the execution done of the caricatures that they represent is good. There weren't really times necessarily. I mean, I mentioned the way I think that's more of the writing for Paul Rudd, the way he reacted to Cher's mugging.
Yeah.
Um, it's a B for me because there were no
Okay.
problems. There's nothing I didn't like that really took me out that we haven't mentioned. But it's not like super deep individual character acting so much as like caricature acting for me.
Right. And I am a little lower than you on this. I
Sure.
gave it a C plus. Similar reasonings here. For me, it was like I could feel the struggle of like a lot of these, good. I mean, this is a talented cast.
Oh, definitely.
I mean, Alicia Silverstone, Paul Rudd, Donald Faison, Wallace Shawn. Like, you're getting a lot of like good people. And I mean,
Mhm.
Brittany Murphy
Brittany
as
Murphy.
well.
Mhm.
Like, you're getting a ton of talent, and you're just like, all right, come on. And I just felt like there wasn't as much growth in the performance
Mhm.
as I would have liked to see. And some of it's the writing, some
Yeah,
of it's the acting, though.
you're right. And that's fair. I just think that they were maybe put in a position where like they had to it was supposed to be lighthearted. They were supposed to be
Mhm.
representing these certain archetypes.
Sure.
And like they had to do like it was more focused on making sure that was super clear than it was on like individualism in characters.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. Okay. Writing. Writing of this film.
Mhm.
How do you feel about it? Give me your grades.
Sure. I think I'm in a similar place here. We talked about some of the issues that took away points for me, but I also think I mean, it is so quintessentially 90s in style.
Yeah.
Like stylistically, like to do the film this way, the way that they did it, really is. I mean, it is the 90s experience. It is supposed to give you that feeling. It's supposed to like cover all the bases without spending too much time on any one of them. Like so
Sure.
that's like both its fallback and what makes it so endearing.
Yeah,
Um
absolutely.
and also for the right I mean like a lot of the dialogue between the characters is fun and funny and interesting and like they definitely do a good job of writing for characters, especially like Cher's dad.
Mhm.
Um, that and for me, I think I'd be more like happy to give him another B here.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat there with the B. And for me, it boils down to like the quippy dialogue,
Yeah.
and it boils down to the faithful adaptation of Emma while modernizing it in a very accurate way that it just felt so natural that
Mhm.
it was modernized so cleanly. and it's surprisingly easy to modernize these old films. I mean, how many Shakespeare scripts
Yeah,
have been modern? I
all
mean,
of
10
them.
Things I Hate About You is a big example.
Mm.
So there's a lot of them. So yeah, I gave it a B. I thought it was really good.
Yeah,
Above average. I'd say a B
sure.
is above average.
Yeah, well, C is the average range. So
Correct.
all right.
Okay, so cinematography. And now
I think
here's
we're
my
including
thing.
like set and setting in this as well.
Yeah, we're not saying like the job the cinematographer does, who was Bill Pope.
Mm.
We're talking about like when we say cinematography here on our much less formal
Yeah,
podcast here, we're talking about like the scope of the film. Now, anything that stuck out to you film wise that was like either a positive or negative in terms of something that's not acting and not writing.
yeah.
So
For me,
because we're not going
it's
to do a specific
mostly
costume thing, we're not going to do a
right.
specific, yeah,
Yes, it's set, setting, and then the way it was filmed specifically,
right,
or what you get to see. And I uh, I mentioned how much I enjoyed the costume design earlier, just for how over the top it was. Um, really fed into the 90s-ness of it.
yeah,
But I feel like at the same time, they did a fine job with the school setting stuff. They did a fine job with, their homes, the party, all that other thing. But you're in Southern California and you don't get like any of that nice B-roll of like the beautiful locations, no beaches, no nothing. Like I felt like there was a missed opportunity to utilize a lot of the space around where they're filming and where they're set.
sure,
And so for me, that was a little disappointing, honestly. I mean, like, I didn't think the way it was filmed was bad or jarring, or like I would have changed that camera angle, or this was too like jarring the way that this cut from one thing to another. I didn't
right.
really have problems with that. But for me, it's still probably just like a C, maybe C plus.
Yeah, and I also gave it a C.
Yeah.
Right on that, right smack average. I thought it was fine. I never was taken out of a scene by like a bad set design
Hmm.
or a bad costume or a bad angle or anything like that. But it all just felt so like it was never supposed to be important,
Yeah.
which is fine if it's not supposed to be important. There's some movies where like the scene in cinematography is so important. Like La La Land comes to mind as a more recent, like it's a more recent musical.
Yeah. Oh, I'm familiar with it. I just
Yeah,
haven't seen it.
and but like the whole point of that film is like the look and feel of the
Mm.
film, or like even a film like Pleasantville, which is like it has the black and white into the
Hmm.
color aspect. So there's a lot of movies where it's all important, and this is just not one of them. There's no like certain hue used. There's no like coloration. I mean, the
Yeah.
costumes are just very plain
Sure.
90s, very 90s, but very like
Hmm.
plain 90s. Like
I was
there's
gonna
not like
say,
an
yeah, like
iconic. The
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 Southern
the
California of it is clear in their dialogue and it's clear in
Yes.
their costumes, but it's not, like, made really explicit. It's not like
Right.
LA becomes a character through the setting,
Yeah.
which
I get that. I'm with you. Okay, so we'll move on here. For me, this I call this the moments. So this is a little bit harder to like grade. The way that I did it was like how many moments are there
mhm,
and like what would you give those grades and then like an overall grade. So I have
sure.
two grades here.
Okay. I mean, do you
I'll
wanna
go
talk
first if you
yeah,
want. If
sure.
I'll
I was
break
gonna
it
say,
down for you.
for me, for moments, like, all epi the moments where, uh, essentially where Mel is on screen, where Dan
Sure.
Hedaya is there, like, every scene with him talking, the one I particularly, wanted to talk about was when Cher first brings Ty home to meet her dad, and they're sitting down to dinner, and
Mhm.
as he's walking in, she's, "Hi, daddy, this is Ty," and he just says, "Get out of my chair." He's just like screaming at her to get out of his chair before he's even looked up and seen that
Yeah.
there's another girl in his house.
Yeah.
And just like all of his moments are akin to that. And
Sure.
every like I just long for
Gruff
him
but
to be in every
lovable.
scenes. Yeah.
Yeah, gruff but lovable. So realistically, here was my thing for moments. Having freshly watched the film, there are things I remember, right?
Mhm.
But I've watched this film before.
Yeah.
And there's one scene that has become like iconic in terms of the like the moment of the film, and it's the stair scene.
Mm,
It's Josh and Cher sitting on the stairs, and like it's not even the kiss itself. I mean, it could be the kiss, but it's like them just like sitting there, like knee to knee talking,
mhm.
and like that whole scene. So that moment is like an A because that
Okay.
burns in your brain and that stays there, and that is like a very enduring part of the film. The rest of this film, like I'll remember the plot of it, and
Mhm,
I'll be able to tell you like quotes and things that Cher says, but it's like below average in terms of like there's not a bunch of really iconic scenes for
mm.
me.
Okay.
There's like good moments, but
Sure.
they're so realistically, like I would give the stair scene an A, and probably the rest of the film combined like a C minus D plus. And so
Okay.
the whole film itself gets a C for me. It's like
Okay, that's
a
fair.
film of moments.
Yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. For me, it's as I've said, it's the Dan Hedaya moments
It's
that are
the
all
Mel
like
scenes.
they're all A scenes for me.
Sure.
But with the rest of it, I was gonna be more like a C plus, B minus.
Okay.
So I sit in there. And then we move on
Understood.
to
Uh
our overall feelings.
well, no, here's where we get to talk about the quotes.
Oh, okay.
Some fun quotes now. So this is a very quotable film.
Yes.
It's maybe not the most quotable because it doesn't have like 50 different quotes. I mean, there are certain, especially from like my more formative years. I mean, this came out when I was 3, so I wasn't really thinking of the
Yeah.
quotes.
Me
But
neither.
like my more formative years, I could like Talladega Nights, dude.
Mhm.
I could quote Talladega
Yeah.
Nights forever. You know,
Sure,
like
sure.
I'm all hopped up on Mountain Dew. I'll be able to say that. I'll be 90 years old saying that, and like my grandkids will be like, "It's okay, just go to sleep now.
Yeah.
Just go to sleep." The Mountain Dew hasn't existed for years.
Or it might just be literally all the things that we drink. I think we're heading
One or
in
the
that
other.
direction.
At we're not.
Another film, another day.
Yeah, we're not heading in that direction though. I watched a documentary on how we're actually going away from sugary drinks, the newer
Oh,
generations,
good.
and how Coke, like specifically,
Well,
well, no, how Coke specifically is changing all of their marketing to make sugar-free Coke look exactly like regular Coke.
mm,
When eventually that switch fully happens, they will already have the same product in place.
nice.
When like we go away from sugary
Yeah,
sodas.
well, I wasn't talking about we're going in the direction of sugary stuff. I was talking about the film Idiocracy and how they use their
I
Mountain
know.
Dew stuff for everything because everyone is really stupid and society is not
Talk
going
about
well.
Let's actually not talk about Idiocracy and
Let's
then
wait.
eventually talk
Yeah,
about Idiocracy.
I agree.
Because that'll be a great one to do.
It is.
Okay. So quotes.
Hit
The
me.
first one for me, I'm gonna go in like order of almost like chronological
Yeah,
order.
sure.
So the first one that jumps out to me because it's maybe the most quintessential 90s line ever is when Cher goes, "Ugh, as if."
Sure, sure.
I mean, it's a short line, but also I was kind of looking it up, like looking it like into it a little bit. I think this movie started that,
Could have been. Could have
which
been.
is, I mean, as if
Yeah, that's a big one.
is the 90s in terms of like
Yeah.
it's such an old retro like
Yeah,
saying. So yeah,
you're right.
that was my
That's
first
good.
one.
So one from early on in the film that I picked out too, just because I think it was really reflective of exactly who Cher was and her life experience was when she's learning how to drive with Paul Rudd,
Oh
and
yeah,
he's like, "Want to practice parking?" And she said, "What's the point? Everyone, everywhere you go has valet."
yeah,
It's like, do they?
and
Everywhere you go has valet.
poor Paul Rudd. I'm like, I will give him credit, like because his face on that scene is like,
Mhm.
how am I getting out of this car?
Yeah,
If it doesn't stop moving, how can I get out?
yeah.
Okay, so my
Okay.
next one, because I'm
Mhm.
sure we're both gonna have the same one for maybe our last one.
Okay.
My next one was during the driving scene uh with D driving after the
Okay.
whole
Sure.
Christian fiasco. Listen, it is a problematic overall line in today's day and age.
Mhm.
What I will say is nobody ever judged Christian in the film for being gay,
No.
which I
No.
give a lot, especially in the 90s. I give them
Yep.
props for that. So I don't take as much offense as I would if he was like being ridiculed for being gay.
Sure.
But Donald Faison's delivery of, so he goes, he's a cake boy. And she goes, a what? And his response, he's a disco dancing, Oscar Wilde reading, Streisand ticket holding friend of Dorothy.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? Why? Why is that
Yeah.
what you needed to say?
I
He's
know.
gay.
Right.
Say
That would
that.
have been a little bit clearer.
But I mean, it's just such a long, like, and well delivered line.
Yeah,
It's
it
just,
is. Right.
I had to give it
Yeah.
props.
My second quote is actually from Dion. And it's during
Okay.
gym class when she's up to play tennis. And she says, I have a note from my tennis instructor. He wants me to avoid lessons that derail his teachings. They derail his teachings. Hitting
That's
2
a good
tennis
one.
balls in gym class in school.
Hey,
Oh my
that
god.
is a good one. All
Yeah.
right. So I have one more. And
Me too.
as far as I'm concerned, it's the quote of the film.
Okay.
It's the quote of the film. And it's, of course, Ty and Cher arguing and fighting in her house after she's flirting with Josh. And Ty just goes, why should I listen to you? You're a virgin who can't drive.
And
It's the line.
it's a good one.
And then Cher just goes, wow, that was harsh.
So I read afterwards. So
Yeah.
Brittany Murphy on set. Brittany Murphy was 17 when they filmed this.
Okay.
And she said afterwards, like, it's funny I delivered that line because that was exactly who I was when I was delivering that line on the set. Like, those
That's
were,
funny.
yeah.
That is
So,
really, that's
right?
funny. But it was just like, like she delivers that line like the same way I would like sentence someone to death.
Yeah.
Like legitimately, like if I was a judge and
Yeah.
there was like a mass murderer in front of me.
Right.
And if I just went, you sir are a disgrace to your country, the chair with you.
Right.
That was the way she delivered that. Like, why should I listen to you? You're a virgin who can't drive. It's like guilty is charged. Take her
End of
away.
life. Yeah.
And it was so funny to me because one, that's just a very quotable line.
Mm-hmm.
And I hear that line. I've heard that line recently, like before we watched the film.
Okay.
Of like somebody just saying that because it's like you quote films. That's what we do as human beings. But it was really good. My favorite part of it is Cher, like her response of like that was harsh with like a little bit of like tears in her voice because it's true.
Yeah.
It's all true. And she just has to like sit there and like take it and kind of sit in it and be like, ugh. Like it's tough to be absolutely dressed down and called out for your biggest insecurities.
Yeah.
Right there.
For sure.
So that, I mean, that's the one for me.
I mean, I have one other one that's
go ahead.
So this one was between Christian and Cher when he first picks her up in his car, and he says, "You like Billie Holiday?" And she immediately responds, "I love him.
I love him." But another thing,
Cher.
That great response from Christian here, who just kind of was like, "What?" doesn't say anything to her, just kind of looks,
right.
And
like
then in his head goes, "Not worth it. Not worth."
Yeah,
not worth the fight.
The poor girl
he does
just
that a
wants
couple
to
times.
Seem like she knows what's going on, like she's not a loser, and he sympathizes with that.
He does that a couple times where he just like there's little things where like somebody who's more pedantic, like an actually person would have been like, but he's just like, I'm not gonna sweat that. Let that go. That doesn't need to be
right.
She'll figure that out.
All right, do you want to hit the IMDb deep dives before?
Yeah, let's hit some deep dives.
Okay, I have two. I don't know which. Do you want to hear one first?
Yeah, I want to hear you go.
So Elton, who we've talked glowingly about, Jeremy Sisto also plays a deeply, deeply unhinged character in the Showtime series 6 Feet Under. He is Billy Chenoweth.
Yes, he is. I actually had him also in as I believe, he's Earl in the the film Waitress,
I haven't seen it.
which
What?
is so it's a Nathan Fillion's in it as Dr.
As the
Potter
waitress?
and no, the waitress is oh god, what's her name? Carrie Russell.
Okay.
But the reason I'm saying
Who
that is
was up
because
for the role of Cher in Clueless, actually.
really,
Yeah.
that would have been interesting.
Mhm.
Because he would have basically been the same person to her.
Mhm.
Because Earl is like her abusive
Uh,
husband,
okay.
and she has an affair with this doctor who's also
Gotcha.
married, and that's the whole plot of the film.
Mm.
But there's like a Broadway musical based on it, which is why I remembered it. But yeah, I
Okay.
also had Jeremy Sisto, who had a very long running career on Law and Order. He might even still be
Oh,
on
okay.
that.
I didn't know that. Did you have another one?
I did have Jeremy Sisto as one,
Okay.
so you kind of
All right. Sorry. Well, here's my other one.
no, you're
The
good.
last credited person here is Joseph D. Reitman as student.
Yeah.
So he's just like one of the background kids who doesn't really have any lines or anything. He's just there. He was also one of the original Geico cavemen.
Oh my God!
Hmm.
How dare you?
How dare I what?
How dare you bring the Geico caveman into this?
Uh, he was in it. I'm not the one who casted him.
That's actually a very good deep dive.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my other one was not at all a real deep
Mhm.
dive. They were very shallow dive. It was Wallace Shawn.
Sure.
I just, he's an actor you might not recognize by the name. If I say, oh, Wallace Shawn,
Mhm.
I feel like there's a good amount of people who'd be like, who? And you got
Yeah.
to say like the T-Rex from Toy Story, or
Yeah. Or the
from
Sicilian and
the
Princess Bride.
Sicilian from Princess Bride. Like there are definitely things he's been in.
Yeah. All right. I got one other quick one.
You got another one,
Yeah.
okay?
So here's the thing. So at one point, Cher, Dion, and Ty all go like, we're gonna go see a movie, and they're
Yeah.
like, let's go see the new Christian Slater. So I looked into it, and in 1995, the year this came out, there was only one Christian Slater movie released in theaters, and it was called Murder in the First, which was a drama thriller that featured Christian Slater, Kevin Bacon, Gary Oldman, and Beth Davids, better known as Miss Honey from Matilda, and William H.
Oh,
Macy.
wow.
It was a drama thriller that they went to see.
They couldn't have known that though.
Right?
Like, there's no way filming this movie they knew what Christian Slater film was
No,
going to
but
be coming
I
out.
had to look into it because I
It
was like,
is
all
in
right, well,
fact
let's see
hilarious though.
what the Christian Slater movie was that they could have seen in this year. And that was the only one.
Good for them, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I guess let's do some final grades here.
Yeah.
So what we're doing here is we're going to go over the Rotten Tomatoes scores. So the tomato meter score as well as the audience score, and we've converted them into letter grades
Hmm.
because I'm not getting. We're trying to
Yeah.
be less specific here,
Sure.
and then our overall grade. So the tomato meter has this film ranking in at a B minus.
Okay.
Which okay, cool.
Hmm.
And now I have a question for you, Nick.
Sure. Sure.
Would you think?
The audience score, higher or lower?
Yeah,
Higher.
right. You'd think
Higher
so.
for sure.
It is a C.
Really?
It's lower.
I'm
Yeah,
shocked.
so am I. I really was expecting the audience score to be way higher.
Yeah, totally.
When I saw that the tomato meter was a B minus, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
it's gonna be. We're gonna be talking like AA plus for that. I
Mhm.
mean, it's a cult classic.
Yes.
Nope, a C.
Fascinating. All right.
Yeah.
Well, then
So
it's up to us, really.
our overall scores. What do
Yeah.
you think? I want you to go
And
first.
that's fine. And you know what? I'm higher than both. I am gonna go with a B to B plus, because I enjoyed it enough. It's just the right era of nostalgia for me.
Sure.
It will always hit
It's
in the
also
correct
right up
way.
your alley in terms of like the style of film you like, because we know your
Yeah,
favorite film is Mean Girls.
true. And honestly, like very self-aware and over the top 90s films because my other favorite film is Scream. So like this is
True.
like the teen version of Scream.
Yeah, man. Listen, I'm a little lower, but not by much. I'm more in line with the tomato meter itself. I'm a B minus, hovering on that line, but I'll give it a B.
Sure. Good for you.
I'll give it the B. I mean, we were talking about it.
So you're giving it an 84, I'll give it an 86.
Right.
And
Like
there's
we're
like we're
just
close, but on
yeah,
the
we're dancing back and
yeah,
forth. But yeah, I mean
that's
that's it. So
indeed.
we did it. We were clueless. We've clued ourselves in here. And that is the first episode of Popcorn
Yes.
Perspectives.
It's been a pleasure, Patrick.
Yeah,
Adios.
man. It's been a ton of fun. Uh stay tuned for more, guys. We're gonna be doing another one soon. Nick's already gone to pee. And everybody have a great day.